Not long ago, I gave up on my dreams, and it almost costed me my life. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Toxic TV. I don't think I'll be able to do these daily because my internet is so terrible that it takes multiple hours to upload a single video. So if daily uploads happen, it's gonna have to be once I get my new internet, which is coming soon. It keeps getting rescheduled, so I have no idea when. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I gave up on my dreams. The final bullet was fired like not long ago, but the reality of my dreams dying was more of like a slow asphyxiation. Throughout elementary and middle school, I always wanted to be a YouTuber. There was no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be a YouTuber eventually. And I didn't want to be just any YouTuber. I wanted to be full-time. I wanted to make money off of this. But I knew in the back of my mind, even as a little kid, just how hard this was. But even then, I would take my little tablet, point it at the screen, and do little walkthroughs of my creative world. Actually, you can probably find those on the internet right now. I don't know the name of the account, but it's probably somewhere. But I really hope that people don't find those videos because I'm pretty sure there's some embarrassing stuff on those channels. But yeah, I wanted to do YouTube more than anything. I was essentially raised by YouTubers, like PewDiePie, DanTDM, Stampy Longhead. I have more memories of watching their videos than interactions with some of my loved ones, and a lot of their content completely defined who I am today. In the modern day especially, I'd have to add on JSchlatt and Pyrocynical onto that. Probably the holy triad of people who formed my personality is PewDiePie, JSchlatt, and Pyrocynical, which is a complete clusterfuck. But yeah, I wanted this more than anything, and I was willing to do anything to get there. But as time passed on and I grew up, I kind of realized, the odds are so not in my favor. Like, this is almost impossible to do. Everyone around me wanted to be a YouTuber. In some cases, even some of the adults I know in my life. My mom has attempted to be a YouTuber. My mom's boyfriend has. My little brother has. Even my grandma has shown interest. Like, how could I do it? So around high school, I started trying to get it out of my system. I would upload every now and then, but in the back of my mind, I knew that I'd never make it. I had decided that I was going to be a computer scientist and code for a living, and I just kind of uploaded on the side, hoping that eventually I'd get it out of my system. And I know what you're thinking, why don't you just do it as a hobby? Well, I couldn't really do that. Like, I don't even mean to exaggerate, but it's kind of like being friends with a girl that you loved and got rejected by. Like, that is exactly how it felt. Just doing this on my free time, it wasn't enough. I wanted to spend every single waking moment doing this. In the classroom, I was legitimately just thinking about YouTube every single day without exception. And then when I got into college, I was sort of really going towards an actual career path. And at that point, I had kind of known like, all right, 100% I'm going and doing this. So YouTube is just kind of out of the picture now. I would upload every now and then, but I had given up on YouTube pretty much, just still hoping that I could get out of my system. And at this point, I had kind of hated YouTube because it was this thing that I was drawn to that took up every thought in my mind that I knew I couldn't do. I know I keep bringing up this example, but this is really how it felt. YouTube was like a girl that I loved with all of my heart, but I knew I couldn't be with. So I kind of just spiraled. I kept on with my schoolwork and everything for the first semester of college, but I think very wonderfully, college actually taught me a lot of lessons. And actually, a lot of my experiences in college was part of the reason why I dropped out. And you would think that would be because of a negative experience. It's like, oh my gosh, college sucks so much, so I'm gonna drop out. But no, it was actually quite a lot of positive experiences that made me look at things a completely different way. One of those experiences was my entire public speaking class in college. I took it for an extra credit, and it ended up being one of the most impactful classes that I had ever taken. At this point in time, I had just started focusing on college, and I'd given up on my dream because I thought, the clock is running, time is ticking, and I need to just get this YouTube stuff out of my head because if I don't now, I never will be able to. But something interesting happened with this public speaking class. For one, I was only able to get a night class. So when I walked in there were hardly any people my age. It was mainly just adults, a lot of people with children. So I sat down at my desk, and I remember we were talking about why we were going to college. And this is a very interesting way to first open up the class. Because to the naked mind, you would think like, of course we're all here for our careers. Of course we're trying to get a good job and we're trying to take care of our families. But the teacher actually talking and asking us this unveiled a lot of very interesting things. As people were going around and questions were being answered, I found people in their late 20s, in their 30s, and some people even in their 40s in this classroom. There was even this older guy who very clearly just said that the reason why he's going to college is because he works a dead-end construction job that is killing him, and he just hates his life. This guy had kids and a wife and a full-on family. And after all that life experience, this guy came back to go and try and get a degree and be able to build a career. I remember looking at this guy, and I don't think I've ever seen more dead eyes. I don't mean to discredit or disrespect veterans, but there were veterans in there who have very clearly been through shit. But looking at their eyes and looking at this guy's eyes, it was still completely different. This guy was completely miserable. And I don't know, just looking at him, it was almost a little unsettling. Like, damn. Like, you take one look at this guy and you just automatically just feel for him. When he said that this job was killing him, you 100% believed him just from one look in his eyes. I'm kind of going on a lot about the look in his eyes, but that stuck with me. And the teacher went around and asked everyone. There was even someone in the class who had been going to college for 8 years, and they still weren't able to get a degree or anything, not even an associate's. So just off the bat, that was a super interesting introduction to the class. And then the class went on and the school year went on, and we eventually got to our first public speech. The teacher told us that we had to practice it a minimum of 30 times. And me, of course, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna treat this class as improv, because I kind of wanted to learn how to improv stuff and do stuff off the top of my head. And that class no doubt helped me with what I'm doing with this channel currently. But yeah, with this first speech, I went pretty much just completely improv. And when I got up to the podium, he asked everyone a set of questions. And I remember, because this is quite embarrassing, and I was definitely being a huge asshole here. He asked me how many times I practiced this speech, just like he had asked everyone before. And I told him 30 times. Because I mean, that's what he told us the minimum was. When in reality, I didn't practice a single time. And he proceeded to ask me, why didn't you do 40? And I immediately was like, seriously, man? I did what this guy required, and now he's trying to raise the bar and give me some bullshit. And I'm thinking in my head, if I would have done 40, this guy would have asked me why I didn't do 50. So I just straight up told him that, and I'm like, because if I did 40, then you would just ask me why I didn't do 50, which is such an asshole move looking back. I shouldn't have said that, and it's kind of embarrassing talking about it now. But he just kind of huffed and said, all right, and he skipped all of the questions that he asked the other students for me. So I was kind of worried, and I'm like, man, I already flunked this. I pissed him off. I messed up. To my surprise, I didn't completely flunk it, but man, was I panicked. And boy, did I screw it up a lot, because I was all in my mind about the fact that I pissed off the teacher on the very first test. And then on the future public speeches, I did pretty fine, even though I was doing improv, and I actually avoided pissing him off those other times, and it was for the most part fine. But I noticed it was really weird. He would go on insane tangents in some classes. Like, sometimes he would just absolutely drill on about stuff that had absolutely zero to do with public speaking. And I'm like, brother, what the hell am I doing here? And as I was in this class longer and longer, I got to know a lot of the adults that were going there, and it really surprised me and changed my perspective on things. I was this dumb kid assuming I was running against the clock, assuming that I had absolutely zero time to do anything. I completely threw my dreams away just so I could pursue a safe job, because that's just what I thought I needed to do. I'm on the clock, right? And these people were in their 30s, in their late 20s, in their 40s, and they were just coming with this completely different spirit that not even kids my age had around college. They knew what the job market was like, and they were so happy to have this chance to finally get out of it. And none of them were ashamed about the fact that they were going to college this early or anything. They were taking it as an opportunity to improve their lives. And it's kind of like, dude, I'm this stupid kid that thinks that the clock is ticking down for me. And here these people are just still going for a career after all this time. And it kind of made me realize that the clock probably isn't as much against me as I thought. Seeing these older people still have this super vitalized take and approach on life made me really think, maybe I don't have to sit here and get a boring job. Maybe I can explore a little bit and look around, because I really do have time. And that wasn't me necessarily realizing that I can sit here and waste a bunch of time, but it's more like I have my entire life to live the rest of my life. I don't need to set myself up perfectly on my 401k and get a steady job in my early 20s. My early 20s are the points in my life that I'm gonna be looking at and thinking, boy, all the things that that younger version of me could have done. As a 19-year-old kid, I was quite literally the meaning of potential. And I was throwing it all out just to get a boring job and live a boring life like everyone else was going to. And I know this story is getting a bit long, but I promise it's coming to an end. It goes on through the year, and the teacher constantly asks us, why are we in college? Why are we in college? And he tells us that there are a bunch of people that are waiting for this opportunity. So if we're just gonna laze around and do this half-measured, that we just shouldn't do it at all and go and do something that we are gonna do in full measures. And here I was, this kid that was pretty much just winging it, not actually doing any studying for the class, not doing the schoolwork that I needed to. I essentially was just not giving my full measures to this. I just wasn't putting all into it. And I was just kind of existing here and just listening to this guy talk about this stuff. And I'm like, man, that's me that he's talking about. But he's never gonna fucking know. He's never gonna know. He surely doesn't know that, I'm just winging all these. I was just completely fine with that as long as I passed and everything. And then we got to our final exam. And one thing that was interesting was our final exam didn't have anything to do with public speaking at all. Before, he told us very specifically, go on YouTube and look up The Final Lecture by Randy Pausch and watch that video from start to finish multiple times and take notes. And he just told us that's what the test material is gonna be on. But he also told us some other things. He told us to get the phone numbers of other classmates and watch it with them and take notes with them and talk about the video. He specifically gave us directions to study with each other and told us that students that work together statistically do so much better than students that work alone. And I'll never forget something that he mentioned. He said that some students are able to get by completely fine and do great working completely alone. And those students piss him off more than anything. Once again, guy is talking about me. So once again, I proceeded to not listen to him, not take notes, not do anything, and I went and played The Final Lecture by Randy Pausch on my second monitor while playing Roblox simulator games on my first monitor, which is the most fucking brain rot thing in the world. Dude, the Gen Z college experience. Studying for your final exam while playing Roblox. It was so unimportant to me that I threw it up on my second monitor while I was playing Roblox. And I don't think that I can properly encapsulate the contents of that video in any amount of words. I'll leave the video linked in the description, and I think that you need to watch it. Anybody that's watching this video needs to go and watch that video. It's like an hour long, but it is so worth it. The video was essentially a guy doing a lecture that was gonna die. It was the final lecture, that's why it was named that. And he knew that he was gonna die very soon because it was cancer. He was going over his life and everything that he had accomplished. And for a little bit more context on what the final lecture is, it's like an event that's set up to give your ultimate lecture. Like everyone that goes there, the whole setup of the event is that you need to give a lecture so good that if it was your final lecture, the last lecture that you could possibly do, this would be it. So everything that is said in these is probably going to be very important and significant to the person who's giving the lecture. And in Randy's case, this was actually his final lecture. And in the final moments of his life, the final most important lecture that he ever gave, his last mark on the world, he talked about accomplishing his childhood dreams. It was a lecture about him talking about all of his childhood dreams and how he accomplished all of them. Isn't that crazy? With arguably the most important event in his life and the final piece that he's gonna leave behind, what he talked about was those naive childhood dreams that he was able to make happen. Seriously, go and watch the lecture. I'll link it down below. But I then went to the final exam, did super good on it. I ended up passing the class. And then the teacher revealed something about this class. He said that it actually wasn't a public speaking class, and it was a class on how to live your life. I probably didn't catch a lot of it and a lot of the hints he may have given because I didn't pay hardly any attention in that class. But a lot of what I experienced in that class stuck with me a lot. And as we were leaving, everyone, all these grown adults were telling everyone, oh yeah, make sure you follow your dreams. I hope you go out and do something that you want. Looking back, this whole class was essentially like, why are you here? Make sure you're here for the right thing. And if you're not here for a reason, get out and do something you want. And even just thinking back to that lecture, in the moment, even though I was playing Roblox, it kind of made me think if this guy at the end of his life, the only thing that was so important to him to make the entire final lecture about was accomplishing his childhood dreams, what the hell am I doing giving up on this YouTube thing? I mean, he hardly talked about his job at all, the career that he probably spent most of his life on. And here I am, throwing everything I've ever dreamed of away for a career that if I was in his position, I probably wouldn't talk about my career either. And all of my other classes during the school year were ridiculously easy, especially English. A lot of the stuff in English that we were covering, I had already read before. So I was essentially getting bullied by the teacher, and she would constantly call on me when somebody couldn't figure something out. Like, it actually got to the point where I would legitimately just like fall asleep in that class, which is shocking to me because I have never fallen asleep in class before that. Like, I'm in this public space, and before I would never be vulnerable around other people like that. But yeah, college was just way too easy. And I knew that it was going to get hard at some point, but I think that if college wasn't a slog at the start, I probably never would have dropped out. And then we moved to my second year, which I almost completely gave up on school with. I would attend the tests, some lectures, and the exams, but near the end, I stopped going to almost all of them, except the exams. And I would drive to the local Dollar Tree and get a quart of chocolate milk and just drink the entire thing whole. Like, I was actually an alcoholic, but just chocolate milk instead of alcohol. It was really crazy and excessive. But yeah, I was gaining weight. I was doing nothing but watching Jeff Nippert in my car and just hoping that I didn't get kicked out of the parking lot, because I'm just sitting in a parking lot watching Jeff Nippert and drink chocolate milk. I mean, as a security guard, if you saw that, what would you think? And things got to the point where I just legitimately hated my life. Eventually, there would be a breaking point with it, because if I failed enough classes to where I stopped getting financial aid, I mean, what was I gonna do then? Neither me nor my family had the means to support me going to college if I didn't have financial aid. So essentially, I was throwing away my one and only chance to actually go to college without crippling debt. And that just threw me into a loop of complete despair. I mean, I'd given up on YouTube, the one thing that made me who I was, and the one thing that carried that childhood wonder. And it got to the point where I didn't even want to live. I remember I would drive to school thinking like, man, if a car hit me right now and I just died, I would not care at all. Some drives I was wishing it. I even had some nights where I just didn't sleep. I had some days where I just didn't eat, and some nights when I was driving to school, I would legitimately almost fall asleep in the middle of driving. It was super dangerous and really stupid, but that's just where I was at. My life was essentially at rock bottom. And then at a certain point, I just started thinking, there's no way I can salvage this year, and there's no way I'm gonna be able to pick myself up again next year. So I was just gonna stop getting financial aid. It was inevitable. I essentially only had one more year of college until my financial aid would probably be cut off completely. And then I would need to stop pretending to go to college, and my family would make me get a full-time job and make me actually support myself. And the only thing worse than college to me was actually working a dead-end job. At that point, I had thought about what was going to happen when that came, and I kind of knew in the back of my mind that if it came down to that, I probably wasn't going to be around for much longer. There was nothing that haunted me more than working a dead-end job. I had a part-time job already, and that was absolutely murdering me. And I'd seen the faces of the people who just came there to get some extra cash on the side, and then they ended up spending the rest of their life there. They were stuck at that job, and their lives was not one that I wanted to live. So it was kind of this cold and logical thing. It wasn't really this despair thing of, oh, my life sucks so much, like I'm gonna end it all. No, it was more of a thing of like, I don't have a girlfriend, I have hardly any friends, I have no future prospects. If college falls through and I have to get a full-time job, there is no reason for me to be around. The suckiness of having a full-time job is usually offsetted by your family, your friends, everything. Things that bring you joy despite the suffering. But I didn't have any of that. So just very bluntly, I just planned on ending things if it got to that point. So with that, I decided on something. If I'm gonna lose everything either way, why don't I give this YouTube thing a chance? I have one more year of pretending to go to college to take a chance on this and see if maybe even possibly I can make it work. So I remember I set my iPhone wallpaper as just text that said 1 year left, so that whenever I looked at my phone, I was reminded that this was my final year to make anything happen at all. And I started approaching it with the belief that I might actually be able to succeed, because it was the only option for me at the time. I stopped doing boring Let's Plays and I started doing more high concept videos. And I didn't need the full year, because I went full time and quit my job and dropped out of school in just 4 months. It's kind of crazy to think about, but yeah, in just 4 months, my life has changed for the better in so many ways. And it's kind of crazy to think that I was completely gonna give up on this. I actually thought at one point that my childhood dream was just too unrealistic and that I'd never be able to do it. But no, that wasn't the case. I took my shot at it and I did it. A lot of the choice was obviously inspired by what I kind of experienced in college, especially in the public speaking class. Because really, if anything were to have any meaning in my life, it would be this. It would be YouTube. So it makes sense that I pursue this like it's all or nothing. And it really was all or nothing for me. And I am so thankful that I did it, because man, my mental health and everything has just went up so much since I've started doing this. There has been some hard times, some extremely hard times during this, but I wouldn't give them up for anything. I never doubt even for a second that they're worth it for the privilege of being able to do all of this. And for so many reasons, I know that this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I was born for. I gave up on my dreams. And if I didn't start going for them again, it would have costed me my life. I hope this story is of use to someone out there. And to anyone listening that wants to go for something, but they want to go the safe route, just remember, when everything is said and done and you're on your deathbed, you're going to be thinking about the things you left behind, the things that you did out of love. So fill your life as much as possible with those things. Because if you don't, then there's no point in living at all. Like seriously, sacrifice all you can to do what you love in life. I am proof that it is so worth it. Anyways, just wanted to air that out. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope that someone got value from it. As always, be sure to check out my other projects that are on screen. Left is a main channel, right is my second channel, and I'll be seeing you guys probably tomorrow.